You're listening to Cosmic Cousins Soul-Centered Astrology. I am your host, Jeff Hinshaw. Thanks for tuning in. Cosmic Cousins is dedicated to honoring the interconnectedness of our universal family through embodied health, self-discovery, and deeper learning. And it is here to bring you back into alignment with the cosmos. So thank you for being here as always. Hey, Cosmic Cousins. Welcome back to another week of the podcast. This is our special Taurus Full Moon Lunar Eclipse episode here at the end of October 2023. I'm recording this on Friday, October 27th. But the actual Taurus Full Moon partial lunar eclipse is on Saturday, October 27th. At 1:24 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, found at 5 degrees of Taurus. And so for those of you who are Scorpio, happy Scorpio season to you. Happy birthday. For those of you who are Taurus Sun, Moon, Rising, Scorpio, Sun, Moon, and Rising, this is a particularly potent time for you and really for all signs as we are here in eclipse season. So on today's episode, we are going to explore some of the invitations of Scorpio season. We're going to check in with the invitations of this Taurus full moon, the Taurus-Scorpio polarity. We're also joined by a few guests, one of which is a previous mentee of mine, Hailey Steinke, who's a Taurus rising, is going to share a reflection with us on their healing journey with the energy of Taurus. And then we have a deep dive conversation with two Taurus Sun individuals who both work in somatic embodiment, but also hold space for grief and death. So we're going to talk about Taurus and its evolution through Scorpio in that conversation. Again, as always, my name is Jeff Hinshaw. It is such an honor to be here with you in this way to facilitate your relationship to astrology through embodied health, self-discovery, and our connection to the moon. We gather every other week on the new and the full moon, and so this podcast is here released with the intention to create a container for you to dive deeper into your own spiritual practices and also astrological practices. So Taurus full moon, right? This is the time of the year. This is the one Taurus full moon of the year that we are gifted this opportunity to tune into the Taurus themes unfolding in our life. So why don't we go ahead and bring awareness to our body and our breath as we begin to create space for bringing this cosmic practice down into the body. If you're a regular listener of the podcast, then you know that each astrological sign is connected to a different part of the body, and it's not limited to just one part of the body. For Taurus is connected to the neck and to the throat, the lips, and the mouth. But the part of the body for Taurus that I really wanted to tune in with today is the thyroid gland, which is located in the neck. And it is one of the body parts Taurus is connected to. The thyroid plays a significant role in regulating various bodily functions and is closely connected to the Taurus archetype. So if you're not familiar with the thyroid gland, perhaps you pull up an image online just to reconnect to the anatomy. The thyroid gland produces hormones that control metabolism, growth, and development. and it influences energy levels, digestion, weight management, and also our overall vitality. So Taurus energy, some of the things that Taurus values is self-care, the importance of rest and relaxation, and also routine and stability. So creating a consistent sleep schedule, ensuring adequate rest, this helps to rejuvenate and support hormone regulation, but it's also really good for Taurus. So again, during the Taurus full moon, or if you are a Taurus or know you have a lot of Taurian energy, or maybe your progressed moon is transiting through Taurus, self-care, the importance of rest and relaxation, and also routine and stability. This is really great for hormone regulation, for cellular repair, and also just overall vitality. So sending love to the neck, the throat, the thyroid gland, the mouth, the lips, the tongue here on this Taurus full moon. Every time we gather, I will also always offer you 3 phrases, and these 3 phrases are intuitively brought to you as verb phrases that help connect us to the zodiac sign that we're exploring for the lunation. And the 3 phrases I have for the Taurus full moon are I embody, I value, I receive. An exercise that you could do is you could fill in the blank, but don't just stop with 1. I value. Maybe you write out a list of 12 things that you value and just allow your intuition to flow. I embody. What are 12 things that you embody? What are 12 things that you receive? And maybe that you are open to receiving. These are some things that you could be doing here just to help you bring the mind into some sort of easeful space of repetition or routine. This is what working with affirmations can do, particularly for those of us that might have anxiety or a busy mind. Working with affirmations can be helpful. I also know that pulling a tarot card for each of these three phrases could also act as an anchor for you as we are moving through this eclipse portal. Again, I embody, I value, I receive. So this is the full moon during Scorpio season. I want to first highlight that. We always have a Taurus full moon during Scorpio season, but this one feels particularly potent, not only because it's an eclipse, but also because it is aligning very close to Samhain, to Halloween, to Day of the Dead. And so this is a very strong energetic convergence that allows us to connect with and honor our dearly departed in a profound way. Scorpio, we're in Scorpio season until about November 22nd, and this is a time of year that is associated with transformation and depth. Scorpio is connected to the mysteries of life and death, and so this invites us to delve into the shadow aspects of ourselves and also to confront our fears and our attachments. So this energy aligning with Samhain and Day of the Dead, which are ancient traditions that honor and remember our ancestors and loved ones who have passed away, is an invitation for us. It's often said that the veil between the physical and spiritual realms is believed to be thin this time of year, making it easier to communicate and connect with those who have crossed over. So the full moon feels as though this is amplifying this energy. It's magnifying our intuition and our sensitivity, so be mindful of that. It's also enabling us to tap into the spiritual realm with greater clarity and ease. So something simple that we can do is just acknowledge and honor our dearly departed during this powerful celestial alignment. You can engage in some sort of healing or transformative practice. We can create some sort of sacred ritual, which just even tuning into this podcast could be part of that. But this could also be setting up some sort of ancestral altar, lighting candles, offering out favorite foods that maybe like your grandmother used to make. We could be engaging in prayer and song or meditation to express our gratitude and love for our dearly departed and also our love for being here on this planet on Earth, which is how Taurus helps to balance this energy of Scorpio. So it is a time to reflect on the lessons and wisdom that have been passed down through generations, to remember the impact that our loved ones have had on our lives, to honor the ancestral energy of the land that you live on, to seek guidance and support from your guides and your spirits. And also, it's a time to heal unresolved emotions, to gain closure, and to find comfort in knowing that our loved ones are still with us in spirit. So a deep bow to anyone who's lost anyone that they've loved over this past year, or just anyone in general that you're still holding that grief on your heart. This feels powerful during this full moon of Scorpio season. And we're going to get deeper into this in our conversation in a bit with Willow and Adriana. But for now, let's just take a moment to tap into Taurus, to the Taurus full moon side of this. The Taurus-Scorpio polarity is activated here on this Taurus full moon. And being that it is a lunar eclipse, there is an extra layer of intensity and depth that is added to the energies at play. During a Taurus full moon, you might find that the focus is on finding comfort. Taurus is a very nurturing energy. We could be focusing on security, finding and manifesting greater ease in our lives. Taurus encourages us to appreciate the beauty of the physical world, to connect with sensual pleasures, to establish a sense of stability and groundedness in our life. Taurus invites us to find contentment in this present moment and to connect with the abundance that surrounds us. So you could even just take a moment to just gently gaze at the room or the space or nature that you are in and just name a few things that you see that are beautiful to you and that you are grateful for. Taurus is encouraging us to lean into this, and actually this is a practice. We could call it a gratitude practice, but this is a practice that is very helpful for us throughout all of Scorpio season. However, this is a lunar eclipse, and so there is the intensity that is brewing in the collective, and the shadowy energy of Scorpio is definitely coming more into play here. Scorpio brings forth the need for profound transformation and growth. Scorpio calls us to explore our, what I like to call, growth edges. Scorpio is an edgy sign. If you know Scorpios in your life, they likely have some sort of edge to them, but that's likely because they are exploring their own growth edges. And we all have Scorpio somewhere in our chart. You know, Scorpio calls us to face our fears. Scorpio invites us to delve into the depths of our psyche and into our sexuality. This can involve confronting addictive patterns that we might have. This can involve confronting ancestral trauma, deeply ingrained patterns that no longer serve us. It can have us confronting that something has come to an end, a relationship, a home, a behavior. You know, something is coming to an end, and this eclipse invites us to examine the Taurian need for comfort and security that doesn't want things to end, attachments that we might have, and to consider whether the comfort and security we have in our life is holding us back from transforming. Scorpio. So this eclipse, it may bring to surface deep emotion, hidden fears, unprocessed trauma, deep-seated emotional patterns that need to be released and transformed. So pay attention to what arises for you during this full moon weekend and in the weeks that follow, as this may be indicative of areas in your life that are ready to be transformed or to change or to release. There is this opportunity to release old attachments, to embrace new beginnings. This is also what eclipses represent in our life, is and sacred endings and closeouts and new beginnings. So for those of you who have Taurus, particularly around 5 degrees, I actually have a few people in my life who are Taurus sun right around this degree of this full moon. They are the ones that I am seeing that are going through radical shifts and changes. This might also be true for those of you with Scorpio, but any of us that have placements around 5 degrees. I'm an Aquarius rising at 5 degrees, so this full moon is at the bends. It's squaring my rising sign. So again, this is an opportunity for new beginnings. So allow yourself to align more fully with the embodiment of who you are becoming, the embodiment of your soul's purpose. The esoteric phrase for Taurus could be helpful for us. It is, I see. And when the eye is opened, all is illumined. I am feeling into the Taurus-Scorpio polarity in my life because I'm currently house sitting for a friend of mine who some of you know, Ashley, who happens to be a Taurus sun with a Scorpio rising, which is very appropriate for this full moon. I'm coming off of a week of having the amazing opportunity to be an assistant and astrologer at Heidi Rose Robbins' Radiant Life Retreat in Ojai, California. So that was last week. I spent the week holding space for one-on-one astrology readings with people that were attending the retreat. I helped facilitate a meditation on astrology and the body, and I also led the group in a poetry and astrology intuition building exercise. And then this week, I'm getting a chance to spend some time in Los Angeles and reconnecting with friends. But it's really special to be in my friend's space that's a Taurus with Scorpio rising during Scorpio season. So I'm using this time to lean into the invitations of Scorpio season, which is really to process all that has been lost over the past year. That's how I make use of Scorpio energy in my life. And so I recently wrote this little post on Instagram. Maybe I'll read it to you now. And I used a little scorpion emoji. This is a symbol for Scorpio, right? So this is what I wrote. I said, Scorpio season is upon us. Symbolized by the scorpion, this time of year encourages deep introspection and the shedding of old layers to facilitate personal growth. Just as the scorpion retreats to secluded areas to molt its old exoskeleton, we too can seek solace in nature to process our own intensity and pain from the previous cycle. This solitude can be a powerful tool during Scorpio season or with any Scorpio placements to reignite with purpose, passion, and creative intention. And this is where I think is important for us with Scorpio. It's a fixed water sign, but traditionally Scorpio is ruled by Mars. The modern ruler is Pluto. So there is a passion and a creativity and a purpose to Scorpio. So in my own life, I'm processing a lot. There have been a lot of painful releases over the last year for me. And I just know it's not been an easy road this past year, both personally and collectively. So if there's anything that astrology teaches us, it's that all things come to an end, and this is a natural process of life. There is a death and rebirth process, and there is a death and rebirth cycle that is unfolding always. And it's really... Scorpio helps us understand that, but it's also how we choose to honor this process that tends to the soil of the new life that awaits. And whatever is shed, truth remains on the other side of that. So whenever we're moving through a death rebirth process, if you find yourself in the midst of that, if you're coming to a lot of endings, what remains on the other side of that? There's a deeper connection to the self. Truth is underneath of it all. In my case, the things that I've let go of this year, what has withstood the storms of transformation are community and deep soul friendships. And so you might find a certain kind of resiliency. Something might be emerging more supportive. Something might be emerging within you that is stronger than before. And so as the sun has just entered Scorpio this week, how are you feeling into these invitations of Scorpio? For me, I am using this time to not only process this past year, but also to channel my passion towards writing and finishing the guidebook for the Cosmic Cousins Astro Oracle. I'm looking forward to sharing more with you as that's ready. Likely on the Scorpio new moon, I will be releasing more information about that. And so as always, thank you for being here. If you're looking for greater support on your journey, I would be honored to hold space for you in this way through a deep dive astrology reading, through a tarot healing session, or I have some openings for one-on-one mentorships. And you can find all of that information in the link in the show notes and also in the newsletter that I send out that you can also sign up for. Again, this Taurus full moon is I embody, I value, I receive, and it is closing out the last year and a half transit of the North Node of Fate being in Taurus. And now as we move into 2024, our eclipses will be in the Aries Libra axis. At this time, I'd like to transition into a little meditation from my dear friend Hailey Steinke of True Colors Astrology. Hailey is a friend and a previous apprentice of mine who helped me during my deep dive research of the asteroids back in 2021. And something that I think is kind of interesting and cool. This happens sometimes. I know a few other people that they've found out that their rising sign is different, but earlier this year, Hailey received a copy of their birth certificate and learned that their ascendant shifted to Taurus rising. So to celebrate this auspicious realignment in their life, and also as a congratulations to them for launching their astrology practice, True Colors, out into the world, I invited them on this week's podcast episode to share their own personal reflections and healing journey with the energy of Taurus. So let's tune into this sweet message from Hailey now.
Hey Cosmic Cousins, I'm really excited to be here today, and I'm really grateful to Jeff, my friend and mentor, for having me on the show so that I can share with you all some of my reflections on Taurus. My relationship to Taurus has been one of healing and of calling back my power. When I think of Taurus, some keywords that come to mind are boundaries, values, pleasure, living in alignment with one's truth, as well as being committed, embodied, and grounded. And this has been really supportive for me as someone who identifies as a recovering people pleaser, because Taurus teaches us that it is our birthright to honor ourselves and to set boundaries, and that it's okay if other people aren't happy with the choices that we make. And that has been a particularly hard lesson for me to learn, because from a young age, being raised in Western culture in the United States, it's pretty commonly taught not to rock the boat, and if you can't say something nice, then you shouldn't say it at all. And this just ingrained in me a sense of responsibility for other people's feelings, and shame for wanting things that might upset other people, or fear of expressing boundaries or things that I need, because that might upset other people or disappoint them. And that was to be avoided at all costs. But in my later years, and what I've learned from relationships that I've had and people with Taurus medicine in my life, I was really shown the medicine of honoring my truth and unlearning my shame and feeling worthy of wanting the things that I want, and like feeling empowered to set boundaries to protect the things that are important to me. because ultimately that is more important than people liking me or being happy with me. I would much rather choose a harder path that is in alignment for me than choosing a path that is not in alignment for me but makes other people happy. But I even feel like it's not accurate to say it that way, because if we're not living in alignment with ourselves, it's usually not in alignment for other people either. And usually I would argue that other people aren't happy either when we're living a lie. It just feels like a pretense or a charade where there's this surface level of things being okay, but there's this underlying feeling of tension and dissonance and misalignment. Even if other people can't name it, I think they can feel it too when we're not living in our truth. And so Taurus really teaches us to honor our truth and to live by that and protect it, and that we are worthy of it. And by choosing it, by choosing ourselves, choosing what we value, choosing what we desire, choosing to live by that and protect that and set the boundaries that we need to stay in alignment with that, we are carving out space for more of that in our lives. And we are setting a ripple effect into motion. I think about when we boil everything down in the universe, no small task, when we boil it all down, we are light and matter and energy and vibration. And I think about how everything has a frequency. And when we tap into our heart's truth, our heart's intention, and the frequency of that, that becomes our guiding compass that helps us navigate choices in our life and identify other things that match that frequency. And when we make choices from that place and from that frequency, the world responds in kind. And sometimes that's not always rainbows and sunshine. Sometimes that can present us with conflict or challenges, which can also be called opportunities to overcome blockages in our lives and help us to see where we've deviated from our path and our intention. And it is an opportunity to correct that and to come back into alignment. But that takes work sometimes. But Taurus teaches us that by honoring ourselves and living our truth, embodying our truth, we are creating a more beautiful world, not only for ourselves, but for others. And that there's no shame to be had in wanting what we want and pursuing what we want, that it doesn't make us selfish, but in fact, it is creating a life full of beauty and magic and joy and pleasure. And that lends more vitality and abundance to be shared with others. When we're resourced with joy, we have more to share with others. And so this is the medicine of Taurus in my life. And so hopefully some of this resonates and is helpful for those of you working with Taurus energy in your lives. And as we enter this final Taurus lunar eclipse in a series that started in November of 2021, may this eclipse help you feel supported in your values, desires, and boundaries, and may you find ease and rest at the end of this cycle under the Taurus full moon. Much love, cousins.
Thank you so much, Hailey, for taking the time out of your life to record that Taurus message for us. And again, Hailey just launched their astrology practice called True Colors. There's a link in the show notes if you'd like to check out their offering. Up next, we have a deep dive conversation with not one, but two magical Taurus individuals. Willow Brook, who is a Taurus sun, Sagittarius moon, Aries rising. Willow Brook is an earth-loving facilitator, song holder, seeker, and artist on fire for love, truth, and embodied liberation. Willow's work is rooted in the understanding that spirituality and justice are inseparable. Willow is the creator of soul invocations, which are watercolor images and messages invoking a state of everyday remembrance. Willow is also a space holder alongside Mirror by Star for an online community grief group called Holy Lament. Joining Willow is my friend and somatic embodiment teacher, Adriana Rizzolo, who is the one who introduced me to Willow. Adriana and Willow both are powerful Taurus individuals with Jupiter and Scorpio in opposition to their sun in their birth chart. In our conversation, we talk about the Taurus-Scorpio polarity, grief as a spiritual path, how holiness lives in the agony, and recognizing the divine in the darkness. Let's go ahead and tune into this conversation now. Okay, Cosmic Cousins, I have some bonfire orange marigolds here today with us, and also some white roses here with me in honor of the Taurus full moon, along with two soul sisters, one of whom you all know really well is Adriana Rizzolo, who's been with us many times on the podcast. And there's another Taurus here with us today who's a new friend of mine, but who's someone who I already consider a soul sister because of her connection to Adriana and also the incredible space that she holds in the world. We have Willow Brook here with us today. Welcome to Cosmic Cousins.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm so happy to be here.
Hooray.
Both of you are Tauruses. We're going to get into that today. I do want to read just a little line bio to introduce Willow. And this is coming straight from your Instagram bio. Earth-loving facilitator, song holder, seeker, and artist on fire for love, truth, and embodied liberation.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. I definitely want to get into the song holder part of your offering at some point today. I think that's really needed at this time. But just even seeing earth-loving facilitator, this is so Taurian of you.
Oh, yes. I love the earth, and I love holding circles of people in that love of the earth.
Where are you located? Maybe share a little bit about you beyond what I just read.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Jeff. Well, I currently live in Taos, New Mexico, which is a really, really, really special piece of land. All land is special, and this one has an especially vibrant majesty and mystery and beauty here at the feet of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. And let's see, what should I say? Maybe my interspirituality is important to talk about briefly, that I grew up in a very interspiritual world with a lot of different faiths and ways of understanding the world. And those melodies, I grew up with the Dances of Universal Peace and in the Unity Church of Boulder, and with a lot of song and a lot of language and a lot of traditions. And so it's kind of woven, it's woven into my bones in that way. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's a few things that are coming up. One is I want to check in with your big three, which is your sun, moon, rising, but I'm feeling your Sagittarius moon come in, which is the sign connected to building a bridge between religions, philosophies, and spiritual practices of the world. That's Sag's soul mission. So you do have this strong kind of spiritual religious side of you with this moon in Sag. And it's also conjunct the galactic center. Did you know that, Adriana, that Willow has moon conjunct the galactic center?
No, but that makes so much sense.
I'll explain, and this could be an opportunity for anyone listening to get to know the galactic center, but essentially our solar system, like the planets rotate around the sun, but the sun and our solar system rotates around a point called the galactic center. And it's found at 26 degrees of Sagittarius in everyone's birth chart. And your moon happens to be conjunct the galactic center, which is a point that offers us vocabulary around cosmic consciousness and the interconnectedness of all living beings beyond this planet. So you have this like far out intergalactic moon, which is already true for Sag moon, but there's just an extra potency. So that's the first thing I wanted to reflect back to you. The second one is you live in New Mexico. And for me in my own practice, I deeply connect that part of the world to Scorpio energy. One, because of Georgia O'Keeffe, lived in New Mexico and it was a Scorpio sun, Scorpio moon, Scorpio rising, but Scorpions dwell in the desert. And you are a Taurus, but you have some strong Scorpio in your chart, which Adriana does too. And this is something that both of you share, which I'm excited because I don't know if the two of you have looked at each other's birth chart, but you both have Jupiter in Scorpio.
Ooh.
Wow.
Yeah. Which means you were born 12 years apart from each other because Jupiter takes 12 years to go around the sun. So you're both Sun and Taurus with Jupiter and Scorpio. So Taurus evolves through its polar sign of Scorpio, which Scorpio is a sign of intense emotion. It's connected to grief and loss. It's also connected to passion and sexuality. There's a lot of other themes. I'm highlighting grief because I know that that's one of the things that you hold space for, Willow. But maybe, Adriana, you could share with us what it's been like for you to have Jupiter and Scorpio as a Taurus. And then, Willow, maybe you'll feel a little bit of reflection in that since you also have that same placement.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. And also, I have to add in the same line of that Willow and I realized our dads have the same birthday, October 25th. So we also both have like Father Scorpio.
I'm a Scorpio dad too.
Oh my goddess! I mean, it is a thing. It's a real thing. Anybody out there with a Scorpio dad? Wow. Okay. So I feel like, Jupiter in Scorpio for me has been this evolution of encountering grief and death in very unexpected ways. And through that lived experience of encounters, through both, I would say spiritually, like spiritual deaths and ego deaths and that inner process of rebirthing, and also loss through, the loss of my father was my most personal, intense loss, as you both know. And the Jupiter, I think, has really made it so that way I've really had to work with that. Some people encounter loss and it's everyone, when they encounter loss, it's a big deal, but some people seem like they don't make their entire lives about it. And for me, I've been since my dad died 16 years ago, it's been the guiding light in my life in terms of my spiritual growth and evolution is his death and the effect that his death had on me and the spiritual awakening that I had through his death and through the pain of loss and every loss that happened after that, whether it was a breakup or, something that I was letting go in terms of my identity. It was, really highlighting yes, this is part of the path. You can't get away from grieving as part of the path of our embodiment of what we know in our wisdom, what we're being given in terms of our spirituality. So I've never articulated it like that, but that feels Jupiter and Scorpio, I think.
It does. I mean, I kind of want you to listen back to it and write it down because it was pretty profound. But Jupiter is the expansion. It's the biggest planet in the solar system. So it's the expansion and accumulation of our wisdom throughout our lifetime. And so the two of you have this in this sign of Scorpio. And I often think of it, it's like the teacher in your birth chart. So for someone who is a teacher, you would look to Jupiter to see what are you teaching about and how are you holding space. And also Jupiter is sometimes like the life of the party. So we've kind of joked, Adriana, having Jupiter and Scorpio, you're like, yay, let's talk about darkness and death.
Yes. And I feel that from Willow, like so much, just like through Willow's being, like through Willow's song, you're just like invited into such a deeper encounter of depth, you know? And yeah, I feel like that sometimes where I'm like, isn't everyone excited to talk about these things that are taboo, quote unquote? You know, it's like, even when I read Scorpios about taboo, I'm like, taboo, like, what does that even mean? Like, to me, they're just so a part of my life and my world, like sex, money, death, like these things that we're taught to perceive in a certain way, that I think we came to decolonize the perception of how we are engaging with these different areas of depth in our life.
Did you know you had Jupiter and Scorpio, Willow, in your birth chart?
I knew that, but I'm still learning exactly what it means. But so much of what Adriana said, I'm like, oh yeah, there's a lot of resonance for me.
Yeah. So one of the ways that I might see that manifesting in your life is the space that you hold in relationship with Mirabai Star. Could you share maybe a little bit about your relationship to Mirabai and the space that the two of you hold together?
Yeah, of course. And first, I want to say too that, as Adriana shared, in a similar vein, you know, the death of my mother, my adopted mother, 10 years ago, is and has been kind of this compass of orientation to not being able to live in any of the shallow waters of life anymore. That there's this complete inner ravaging that happened through that, and that nothing else can satisfy my hungry heart and my, you know, my longing for truth. And in that way, you know, what Mirabai and I have created in the Holy Lament space, that's what we call it. It's an ongoing grief community that takes place in the virtual world primarily, is that grief and loss is a spiritual path. That there is, in so many of the spiritual traditions, grief is kind of outcast as this thing that we overcome or we're better than. And for both Mirabai and for me, it's more the holiness comes from and rises from the depths of the darkness, from the depths of the soil of the earth. And, you know, with Mirabai, I met her at the Lama Foundation where I lived and where she lived when she was 14. And, you know, we connected immediately on so many different things, interspirituality and grief as a spiritual path. Like when I heard her speak about grief as a spiritual path, it was like, oh, this is what I've understood since the moment that my mom died. And that the holiness only grows through that. I mean, the agony, but holiness lives in the agony. And we are somehow, you know, taught to not believe that that's true, or not recognize the divine in the darkness. But we have since been working together since I left Lama. I worked as her assistant for many years. And then we kept sensing, you know, the death of her daughter, in addition to many, many deaths in her life, opened that portal. What she says is, you know, she's been on a spiritual path for over 20 years, and it started the day that her daughter died. You know, there's nothing that she can access on a meditation cushion or in any of the holy synagogues and temples of the world that that's the same as what grief has taught her. And so we created this space, you know, for many bereaved parents and children and ones that are just grieving the loss of so much of humanity and anything, relationships, to come together and just take refuge in like what I was speaking to. Like I have no hunger for the shallow waters anymore. And so much of what we long for in grief is to just be real with people. So that's what we've shaped.
Yeah. So Mirabai is also a Taurus.
Yes. And she has Scorpio rising, I think. Yes.
Yeah, that tracks. That makes sense. So the three of you, Mirabai, Willow, Adriana, you all are Taurus sun, but offer us wonderful expressions of how Taurus does evolve through Scorpio. And I'm curious about how we come back to Taurus on the other side, because we don't want to live in Scorpio as a Taurus. You want to bring it back to your Taurian gifts. And so one of the ways Taurus might do this is through its connection to the throat. So each zodiac sign is connected to a different part of the body. Taurus is connected to the throat, the lips, the mouth. It's also connected to the third eye center, which we'll talk about. That feels like a different topic. Maybe they're connected, but what is your relationship to the throat? This is for both of you. And how has that helped you come back into your Taurus nature?
I mean, just listening to Willow talk, I was like getting emotional. And I think that in itself is an example of what you're saying. It's like when somebody like Willow has done and has, been invited to by the divine to do that kind of work, even when you speak, Willow, it connects me to my own grief. It's like your voice and the words that you're saying, not just what you're saying, but the feeling of it that's inside, right? Like the vibration, you could say, or at least that's how I perceive it, of your voice. I was feeling my own permission. I was sensing my own permission to feel, right? To touch into those softer places. So I think even just that, right? Like the ability to go into these very wordless, oftentimes, places. Like grief is, this landscape that involves many different experiences of emotion, and oftentimes you don't have words, right? It's like, and any words that people say to you are just like not the thing, it's just, there is no words, but there's a presence that you can feel from someone that is there in that way. And I think the Taurus, coming back through Taurus, is like learning how to find some of the words that actually might be helpful in moments of grief and in moments of death, in moments of deep transformation, right? And so that's the first thing. And then the second thing I want to share quickly, because Willow and I really connected. As soon as we met, the first time we met on Mirabai's retreat in Molokai a couple years ago, it was like as soon as we sang together, I was like, like just this feeling of just like, like it's not just about what the voice sounds like. It's this complete permission and safety that gets built inside of singing, especially devotional singing, that when you allow yourself to, for me, that practice in itself of devotional singing was the thing after my father died that started to help me feel safe to actually use my voice. And it took many years of chanting and many years of that practice of singing in devotional ways to start to build a safety within my own being, that it was okay to speak, what was in my heart. I mean, it's a forever lifelong journey for me, but because there's always more edges of like vulnerability that I can feel and sense that I can't yet speak. But that has been, I think Willow and I really share that connection through song. Like you can access the unseen through singing. And it's really so healing and so necessary. Like I'm always like, Scorpio season, you need to be singing. Because if you're not, it's like, it's intense under here, like we need the song to kind of call forth the light in the dark.
So beautiful, Adriana.
Yeah. Embodiment is the word that's coming to mind for me. Whatever the intensity of a grief or emotion that we're feeling, that by opening up the throat, and whether it's singing or prayer or just sharing a poem or just what's on the heart, it brings us back into the body. There's something about voicing it that reminds us that it's safe to be here on this planet. And I love that you're talking about like joining together with voices too. Yeah, so embodied liberation is something that you have in your little bio on Instagram, but I'm sure it expands way beyond that. And I know, Adriana, a big part of your practice too is also body temple. So there's something with embodiment that when Taurus speaks truth out into the world, it helps us land into our body. This is very different than other signs. Like Gemini is also a communicator, but Gemini is actually more about sharing duality and having us be in conversation and dialogue with each other. But actually, Taurus is more, I think, about how Mirabai holds space, is sharing truth, saying it once. Whereas Gemini might say it like 5 times or 5 different ways, but saying it once and allowing it to land in the body. This is Taurus's gift to us. So what is this embodiment? What is embodied liberation? I'm curious for us to explore this today too.
Such a good question, Jeff. And yeah, I call Mirabai the queen of distillation sometimes, because she has this way of her words. She's such a master with words. She's a writer. That's her main expression. And yeah, I have a few thoughts about embodiment, because Mirabai, her main teaching, especially now, is the embodied feminine and reclaiming this wisdom that lives in the body, that we're, in so many of the spiritual traditions, it's been to overcome the body and abandon the body on the path to enlightenment. And Mirabai is reclaiming the wisdom that lives in the body and in all of our everyday life. Her new book is Ordinary Mysticism, Your Life as Holy Ground. And so she brings so much contemplation in that. And to me, embodied liberation, I'm still figuring out what it means, but I know that there's this certain flavor of liberation that I've learned about that feels like denying the body just for the sake of denying the body. And there's something that is still developing in me around discipline and freedom, where I think I've learned so much from the practices of fasting, of denying the body, of knowing the power beyond the body, but for the sake of being present with the gifts of the body, not to completely abandon them and overcome them, quote unquote. There's something also about sensuality. Like even in Adriana's voice, there's so much sensuality in Adriana's voice that like we're speaking. When you speak, I'm like in my body. And so I think there's something for me about that. And also in song, in dance, body temple dance. Adriana will certainly speak to that. In sexuality, in bringing, it's so felt to me, because there's this sense of so much of the spiritual teachings that levitate above my head, which I also love. I love going into that realm. And there's something so ecstatic about experiencing that bliss and that connection when I eat a raspberry, when I look at the sun, when I feel my breath. That's even like, I'm not in this body on accident. And so how do I bring those teachings of discipline and understanding and appreciation into how I live in this body as long as I do?
The phrase that I wrote down in my notes that feels, in some ways, it's encapsulating what you're saying, which is one of your offerings, is soul invocation. And this is part of your artistry. You're also an artist. Have you connected soul invocation to some of what we're talking about with embodiment? And could you share with us a little bit about your art?
Ooh, yeah, this is a good question. So soul invocation actually came to me when I was doing some deep embodiment rooted work. I was doing this process with my friend, Ray Halder, who's amazing, of rooted. And this is another part of embodied liberation that I feel very passionate about, is our social connections and the ways that we have oppressed each other as human beings, and that sometimes that's left out of the equation of liberation, that there's healing that needs to happen. And at that time, I was doing a lot around ancestry work and looking at myself as a white person on Turtle Island, and working with Reverend Angel and radical Dharma work. And looking at, those things that live in our bodies, that when we go into a room with other human beings are activated in our bodies, that from our ancestors, from all of the social relating that we've done for generations, that lives in us. And how do we bring that along too? I remember being in a practice with Reverend Angel, and we were just doing this ancestor practice of calling on generations in all directions and dropping in deep, deep into our belly. And I got shook. Like, it was big time. I was like, wow, I've been doing yoga for 16 years. I thought I was quote unquote embodied. This is different. This is like the deep layers of not just stretching and moving, which is also important, but digging deep. And so from that, I was doing these invocations to my soul to understand, like writing. I was writing like, okay, what is a belief I have? I will intimidate people people are intimidated by my love. Okay, what's true? I'm attracting people that are ready for me. And then what happened is I was like, well, what does that feel like in my body? Like I was saying these things every morning and I'm like, what is that shape in my body? So I started making these shapes on my body. I trust myself, I'm grounded and at ease. And it was like these, my hands on my body would come. And then I started painting them for myself. I was like, I need to see this. I need to see myself in these shapes. And then as I did that, I realized, wow, other people vibe with this. And so I started making prints and little decks. And honestly, there's like 30 more, like 50 more in my sketchbook that are going to come out into the world one day when
They're
the time is right.
amazing, by the way. I have to just interrupt to say that they're so beautiful. And I've given them as gifts and on retreats. And they're just like, oh, the drawings are just, yeah, it's like so, sorry, my cat is really not having it. So Taurian and just like, yeah. And so channeled, like everything. I loved hearing the backstory. I don't think I knew all of that. It feels like, yeah, so powerful.
Thank you, Adriana.
You use them like as an oracle deck too. I think I was hearing you say that.
Yeah. I mean, I did 16 originally, and I was going to do them actually in this art show called, Apocalypse Blossom. And it was right before the pandemic hit. And we were like, oh, maybe the apocalypse is not ready to blossom. And so I didn't end up shaping them, but I had scanned those 16 images for that reason. And then I have a lot more. And I keep wondering, how many do I have before I create like an official deck? But there are 16 that I have prints of that I made into little oracle decks. And many people use them as like drawing one a day or getting little nuggets of inspiration.
Is there one that maybe you could draw for us right now, or one that's coming to mind that you're feeling into for this Taurus full moon this weekend?
Let me go get them. Let me see if I think I need to draw one.
Yeah, draw one for us. And while Willow's doing that, Adriana, let's bring in the Taurus full moon lunar eclipse of this weekend. I'd be curious for us to just check in and see how we're experiencing it. There's so many things brewing this weekend. I know one person purchasing a house. I know another person going through a divorce. I know someone else that is inviting their teacher all the way from Italy to their home to share in ritual, which maybe you could share a little bit about that and what's going on for you this weekend.
Yeah. I mean, I was up a lot last night. Like at one point I woke up and the moon was just like shining through the window. And my partner and I were like, it doesn't even make sense that it does that. Like we just had this like moment of darshan with the moon, but also being like, do you ever think about like why it shines like that? Like it's such a mystery. Like I get it. Okay, white rock in the sun, but like really, does that really like fully, like it was just like receiving the luminosity and also being in awe of the mystery, like the great mystery that the full moon can even shine the way it shines. Like we were just like sleepless and a little bit like challenged in that moment, but also then just got taken over because it just came into the window and we were like, oh my gosh. And then, yes, I'm bringing my teacher, Alessandra Bologna, who is a very wild mystic and a powerful musician, drummer, and chanter. And she's coming to teach us the Tarantella, which is a pre-Christian ritual dance that was traditionally done by women and queer folks as a way to work with getting oppression out of the web. So the idea is that when you fall in love, you get bit by this spider of like, and you go into this intoxication through love that can also simultaneously like consume you. It feels very Scorpio to me. Like you can get consumed by like this person and all of a sudden the thing, it's like you're hooked, right? And that could be a system, that could be a person, right? And so it is birthed from love, but this tradition, which is a dance where it's an exorcism essentially to get out the parts of it that are, not actually benefiting you, the parts that might be oppressing you, and returning back to the web of love and of life through the practice. So, yeah, I'm very looking forward to hosting her, and we have some people, coming into town. And so it'll be very deep and beautiful. All in worship, I just have to say, also of the Black Madonna and of the Great Mother, really, essentially the Divine Mother, the Earth Goddess. Like, these are ancient rituals in deep devotion to her and her power to protect and transform all people and all beings.
And I've mysteriously found myself in Topanga Canyon this Scorpio season, staying at my dear friend Ashley's, who is a Taurus sun with a Scorpio rising. So I'm just like feeling into the polarity of this time of year really potently. But because of that, I have the opportunity to actually go to this event that Adriana is hosting tomorrow. So that's how I'll be spending the full moon too. So if any of you listening to this right as this is released, because some of you might be listening to it on the other side of the full moon, and you feel called, come join us in Ojai at Light and Space, where we'll be learning this ancient dance ritual. Did you plan it with a full moon? I feel like you don't normally plan stuff with a full moon.
No, I never do. I used to always function like that, like with my work, like 10 years ago, I was always like the new moon, the full. And then at one point I just stopped. I mean, I just stopped planning everything at one point when I went through a dark night of the soul. And now it just, things always align. I was actually a little bit nervous when I realized it was tomorrow. I was like, ooh, okay. Like, this is going to be really healing. So calling in lots of prayers. Yeah.
Did you find your oracle deck?
I did, and I pulled one, and I'm surprised, but it also kind of makes sense. I'm going to show the two of you. This is the only one in the deck that doesn't have words.
Yes.
I was like, huh. And it took me a second, and then I thought, oh yeah, this is an image of a figure opening up, like heart to the sky, with this cloud of kind of like, what I tried to do is make it like a honey color. There's some pastel pinks and blues and this like golden color. And this image actually came to me after I was doing some deep, like familial work of like processing deep sadness. And it felt like this channel, which you can see in the image, like kind of in the center, opened and was washed out with whatever I was digesting. And there was this honey, there was this sweetness that was rising from that open space that was oozing out of every pore. So I'm like, okay.
Wow, that feels very Taurus Scorpio, like the honey and the pleasure of Taurus and the deep sadness and emotion of Scorpio. And what it's bringing up for me is really interesting because like the invitation of the eclipse is actually to be more open and receptive. It's not necessarily a time to set new intentions or even to like fully like release something in the world is not always recommended during the eclipse. It's more a time of just letting the eclipse work its magic on you. So just seeing that there's no phrase or affirmation there feels like a reminder of that.
Yes. And deep surrender, right? I mean, so much, I think the Scorpio medicine, like for a Taurus, is that deep surrender. Like Taurus without surrender it's stuckness. It's hard to like really be free in your body, right? And I mean, period. And like when we have that, the willingness to surrender, not just as a passive act, but through embodied ritual and prayer, then, we really do experience liberation in our human heart, right? And through our human experience of stuckness into the ways that stuckness starts to bring us back more life and gives us that ability to transform our inheritance in a lot of ways as well. So I feel like the surrender and that card, which I love, I've gotten that card before, the wordless surrender. We know any deep state of surrender, it's just indescribable.
Yeah. And I'm so glad to hear that about the eclipse, Jeff. That's very helpful because the first image that when you asked me, I thought of this one, which is I surrender to my life's purpose, which is a figure floating in the water. And I was like, I don't know, is that the right vibe? But I think they both feel appropriate that, surrendering to all, sometimes sweetness, sometimes sorrow.
Are these watercolor images?
Yeah, they're watercolor images.
And they're gorgeous. I'll put a link in the show notes to Soul Invocation so you all can check Willow's offering out.
Thank you.
And as we get close to the end of our time together, I did want to bring it to things that are happening in the world and also just, this connection we have to song and prayer that has come up. And I noticed an email this morning from Mirabai titled "A Prayer to Strengthen Your Heart." And Mirabai offered a prayer in tandem and in relationship to the turmoil and violence that's been happening in the Middle East. But I just wanted to check in because I think it's always important for us as practitioners to just also be aware of what's going on in the world. But as there's ripple effects and waves of grief that are being created around the planet, I'm curious for both of you if there are any practices or prayers or poems that either of you might lean into when there's collective grief, and maybe that you might want to share with us to help, strengthen our heart and strengthen our sense of hope and togetherness.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing it up, Jeff. It's always in my heart. And what's unfolding in Palestine and Israel has been on my heart for many years, and especially right now. And it's something Mirabai and I have been having a lot of conversations about. And I think as far as a practice, the song that I sent you when we were texting before this is a song I've been singing a lot. That everything that is up right now feels to me like connected to human beings and our sense of belonging to the earth and how we build homes in harmony and love, and our tendency to, and just the patterns of oppression and stealing and violence that we've perpetuated on each other. And my prayer has consistently been, especially heightened in these times of our remembering of how we belong to the earth and how we act in love in that way. And I'm doing this process right now in Taos of like being a conscious guest and talking to people who have been here for generations, and how to not contribute to gentrification, and how to remember our inherent belonging and know how to, or at least learn how to live in consciousness in that way. So that song by Mel Washburn, I believe that I belong to the earth. May my life be a song. May my song feed the earth.
Do you want to sing it, Willow, and I'll do the echo?
Yes, because I was thinking we can't sing it at the same time, but that would be beautiful.
Okay.
Praying for the liberation of all people, all beings. That we remember our belonging. I believe that I belong to the earth. I belong.
Yes, I belong.
May my life
May my life
be a song.
be a song.
May my song
May my song
feed the earth.
feed the earth.
We believe
We believe
we belong
that we belong
to the earth.
to the earth.
We belong.
Yes, we belong.
May our life
May our lives
be a song.
be a song.
May our song
May our songs
feed the earth.
feed the earth.
What a gift. Thank you for sharing so generously your heart and your soul with us through this prayer, this song. And that could be a running mantra or affirmation for us this weekend, and as we move through the rest of Scorpio season and the moon continues to wane towards the Scorpio new moon on the other side. And I will be holding that song with me, and I'll learn it myself and pass it along. Is that one that you learned from someone, or is that your song? I always like to just check in with that too.
Oh, yeah. It's by Mo Washburn. And yeah, I mean, I have a whole lot I could say about my own relationship to song and voice, and it's ever evolving. But for now, I sing other people's songs mostly. And I also want to add, Jeff, one of the other practices that I feel is the most embodied is to take action, to pray with our feet, to call our representatives, to, get our hands in the dirt, in the dirt of the world, and to light a candle for the dead. I'm doing a yin and yoga nidra class to honor the dead this weekend too. And for all of our ancestors that we've loved and known, and all those who are dying right now, feels extra potent to remember and honor them on that journey, no matter when they've transformed.
So powerful. And thank you both for the work and the offerings that you put out into the world, and also for making the space today to honor each other and this full moon.
Thank you so much. Love you.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Thank you so much, Adriana. I love you both. And I'm really, really honored to be here with you.
Yes. And one day the three of us will be together singing in person. Yeah. All right. Big love. Thank you, as always, Cosmic Cousins, for tuning into the podcast. Without you, this show would not be possible. If you feel like spreading a little bit of love, you could leave a 5-star review. You could leave some comments and love. You could share with your loved ones or anyone else that you think that this type of work and offering might support. If you'd like to support the show, you could become a Patreon supporter at patreon.com/Cosmic Cousins. I also will always be here available for astrology and tarot reading, so you could book at the links in the show notes. And in addition, Willow, we were just in conversation with, is leading a yin and yoga nidra to honor the dead this Sunday, if you're listening to this live, October 29th, from 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific, and that is online by donation. And Adriana has a free series on rage that she wanted to gift to you. There's also a link to that in my newsletter. It's a free series on rage, Kali, and releasing people-pleasing in times of grief. If you're in New York City, Adriana is going to be there leading a Dark Goddess celebration in 1 week at Maha Rose on November 3rd. In the meantime, I am always grateful and just thanking you so much for being here. I'm wishing you a grounding and transformative Taurus Full Moon Eclipse and a happy Samhain, Halloween, and Day of the Dead, or however you choose to celebrate. Sending you off with a lot of love. Take sweet care, cousins, and remember, deep breaths.